In this presentation, you will learn about the instructions for completing the PR1000 of the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Reports. The PR1000 is the compliance report for the Title I Part A program. The presentation is intended solely to provide general information and guidance to Texas LEAs and reflects the TEA's current understanding of the presentation topics and applicable federal guidance. The content of this presentation is subject to change as a result of further potential information and guidance provided by federal agencies with regulatory oversight of this program. This presentation does not constitute legal advice, and LEAs are therefore advised to seek legal counsel regarding the information and guidance provided in this presentation before acting on such information and guidance.
The ESSA Consolidated Compliance Report generally opens at the end of July and is due by the end of September.
To access the report, log in to eGrants and select the Compliance Reports tab. The Compliance Report link can be found under the Consolidated Compliance Reports section in eGrants. The table of contents for the Consolidated Compliance Report will initially have only one active link for the GS 2100 applicant information. Once the GS 2100 is completed and saved, the compliance reports that are applicable to the LEA will become active, including the PR1000 for Title I Part A. Before we go over the details of the PR1000, I want to go over some of the report features. On the top right-hand side of the report is a button that will open a PDF document with the instructions for completing the compliance reports. On the bottom of the screen is a back button that can be used to navigate back to the table of contents. Additionally, there is a drop-down menu at the bottom right-hand corner that allows you to navigate through the different compliance reports that are applicable to the LEA. The Printable Version button allows you to open a printable version of the report. And the Save button allows you to save the report as you enter information on the report or at the end of the report. When the LEA selects a Save button, if there are any errors, the system will generate a list of errors and warnings at the top of the report. As shown here, there was an error in Part 1, Line 1. In this example, line 1 was left blank. For your reference, the system will generate a red box in the report for the field where the error is found. Once the LEA adds an expenditure amount in the field and saves the report, the error will no longer appear on the errors and warnings listing. The LEA can use the Print Errors button that will appear on the right to print a copy of the errors and warnings for reference. If there are no errors or warnings, the system will indicate that the report has been successfully saved. We will now go over the instructions for completing the PR1000 Title I Part A compliance report. The PR1000 is divided into 6 parts. Part 1, expenditures from Title I Part A funds reserved at the LEA level. Part 2, expenditures from Title I Part A campus-based program budgets. Part 3, public school student participation for ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS. Part 4, student participation for private nonprofit schools and local facilities for neglected. Part 5, program compliance self-check. And Part 6, additional information. Let's now take a look at Part 1, expenditures from Title I Part A funds reserved at the LEA level. Please note that for Parts 1 and 2, report only those expenditures and activities paid with Title I Part A funding during the compliance report grant year. Funds utilized from other programs through funding transferability should be included in the expenditure amounts for Title I Part A. In the past, we have included in our instructions for the PR1000 that funds utilized from other programs through the Rural Education Achievement Program would be included in the expenditure amounts for Title I, Part A. However, for 22-23 and beyond, per USDE guidance, we have been advised that only expenditures from funds redirected via funding transferability are to be reported. Please do not include Rural Education Achievement Program funds utilized for Title I Part A activities in Parts 1 and 2. Part 1 will include the activities for which the LEA reserved funds and the LEAs to report the expenditures under the expenditures column for each of the 12 activities noted. At the very bottom of Part 1, the total of all expenditures reported will auto-calculate. To complete Part 1 of the PR1000, the LEA will want to reference their ESSA Consolidated Application PS3101 Title I Part A Program Schedule to verify the activities that the LEA reserved funds for so that the activities match what is reported on the PR1000 Title I Part A Compliance Report. Let's take a look at items 1 and 2 for Part 1 as they both relate to funds reserved at the LEA level for district-wide parent and family engagement activities. Only LEAs with an entitlement that exceeds $500,000 for the reporting period are required to enter expenditures on line number 1. LEAs in this situation would enter 0 for line 2. LEAs with a current year entitlement that is $500,000 or less that voluntarily chose to reserve funds for district-wide parent and family engagement activities enter expenditures on line number 2. 0 is an acceptable response since this is an optional reservation for LEAs with a current year entitlement that is $500,000 or less. LEAs in this situation would enter 0 for line 1. For line 3, type the expenditures for Title I Part A services to eligible private school students. Do not include administrative costs. Any administrative costs for these activities should be included in line number 4. 0 is an acceptable response if the LEA did not have PMP schools participating in the Title I Part A program. For line 4, type the expenditures for administration of Title I Part A programs for eligible private school students. 0 is an acceptable response. For line 5, type the expenditures from Title I Part A funds for preschool programs. 0 is an acceptable response. For line 6, type the expenditures for administration of Title I Part A programs, including those for students at facilities for the neglected and delinquent. 0 is an acceptable response. Do not include expenditures here for administration of Title I Part A programs for eligible private school students. Those expenditures should be only included in line number 4. For line 7, type the expenditures for LEA professional development activities. 0 is an acceptable response. For line 8, type the expenditures for Title I Part A services to homeless students, regardless if they are served by a Title I Part A campus or not. Do not include administrative costs. Any administrative costs for these activities should be included in line number 6. For line 9, type the expenditures for Title I Part A services to students residing in local facilities for the neglected. Do not include administrative costs. Any administrative costs for these activities should be included in line number 6. 0 is an acceptable response. For line 10, type the expenditures for Title I Part A services to students residing in local facilities for the delinquent. Do not include administrative costs. Any administrative costs for these activities should be included in line number 6. 0 is an acceptable response. For line 11, type the expenditures for Title I Part A services for foster care transportation. 0 is an acceptable response. And for line 12, if the LEA had other expenditures of Title I Part A funds for the LEA activities that are not included, type the expenditures and add a description of the activities. The Part 1 total expenditures from Title I Part A funds reserved at the LEA level field auto-calculates and shows the total expenditures for Part 1, lines 1 through 12. Let's now take a look at Part 2, expenditures from Title I Part A campus-based program budgets. Please note that for Parts 1 and 2, report only those expenditures and activities paid with Title I Part A funding during the compliance report grant year. Funds utilized from other programs through funding transferability should be included in the expenditure amounts for Title I Part A. In the past, we have included in our instructions for the PR1000 that funds utilized from other programs through the Rural Education Achievement Program would be included in the expenditure amounts for Title I Part A. However, for 22-23 and beyond, per USDE guidance, we have been advised that only expenditures from funds redirected via funding transferability are to be reported. Please do not include Rural Education Achievement Program funds utilized for Title I Part A activities in Parts 1 and 2. For line 1, type the total Title I Part A expenditures from all school-wide program campus budgets. For line 2, type the total Title I Part A expenditures from all Targeted Assistance Program campus budgets. The Part 2 total expenditures from Title I Part A campus-based program budgets field auto-calculates and shows the total expenditures for Part 2, lines 1 and 2. Please note that if your LEA reported 0 campuses operating school-wide programs on the SC5000 of the ESSA Consolidated grant application, the field will be disabled and your LEA will not need to report school-wide program campus expenditures. If your LEA reported 0 campuses operating targeted assistance programs on the SC5000 of the ESSA Consolidated grant application, the field will be disabled and your LEA will not need to report Targeted Assistance Program campus expenditures. Let's now take a look at Part 3, Public School Student Participation for ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5, not reported in the Texas Public Education Information Management System, otherwise known as PEIMS. For Part 3, only report data for children ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS that received Title I Part A services. The 3 types of data reported for children ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS includes age, gender, and ethnicity. Please do not include numbers for students of any other ages or grade levels. TEA will use the PEIMS data collected for students enrolled and identified as receiving Title I Part A services for all other ages and grade levels. Depending upon the responses on the SC5000 of the ESSA Consolidated grant application, one of the columns in this part may be disabled. Complete the enabled columns to report on student participation in the programs. For example, in this screenshot, the LEA will report school-wide program campus data for children ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS that received Title I Part A services. The Targeted Assistance Program column has been disabled because the LEA reported that they did not have any campuses operating a Targeted Assistance Program in the reporting grant year on their SC5000. For Part 3, Section A, for children's ages 0 to 2 and 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS, type the number of students who received Title I Part A services. For For Part 3, Section B, for children ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS, reported under age, type the number of male and female student participants who received Title I Part A services in the program. For Part 3, Section C, for children ages 0 to 2 and ages 3 to 5 not reported in PEIMS, reported under age, type the number of student participants by ethnicity. Please note that the total under by age must equal the totals under gender and ethnicity as well. Now let's take a look at Part 4, Student Participation for Private Nonprofit Schools and Local Facilities for Neglected. Depending on the responses in Part 1, lines 3 and 9, one or more of the columns in this part, which is Part 4, may be disabled. You are to complete the enabled columns to report on student participation in the programs noted. For example, if an LEA reported in Part 1, 0 in expenditures on line 3, Title I Part A services to eligible private school students, and 0 in expenditures on line 9, services to students residing in local facilities for neglected, the fields for data entry will be disabled on Part 4. If the LEA reported at least $1 on lines 3 and 9, then the LEA will be required to report participation numbers for students receiving Title I Part A services in private nonprofit schools and local facilities for neglected. Please note that the student participation numbers that are entered in this part are only for private nonprofit schools and/or local facilities for neglected. The three types of data reported for private nonprofit schools and local facilities for neglected includes age, gender, and ethnicity. Please note that if the fields are enabled, they cannot be left blank. Thus, you will need to type a 0 in each of the fields where there are 0 participants. For Part 4, Section A, for the ages and grades listed, type the number of participants under private nonprofit schools. For Part 4, Section B, for the ages and grades reported under grade, type the number of male and female student participants by grade under participant private nonprofit schools. For Part 4, Section C, for the ages and grades reported under grade, type the number of student participants by ethnicity under private nonprofit schools. Please note that the total under grade must equal the totals under gender and ethnicity under private nonprofit schools. For Part 4, Section A, for the ages and grades listed, type the number of participants under local facilities for neglected. For Part 4, Section B, for the ages and grades reported under grade, type the number of male and female student participants by grade under local facilities for neglected. For Part 4, Section C, for the ages and grades reported under grade, type the number of student participants by ethnicity under local facilities for neglected. Please note that the total under grade must equal the totals under gender and ethnicity under local facilities for neglected. Let's now take a look at Part 5, Program Compliance Self-Check. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. The compliance items listed are a selection of program compliance requirements for compliance reporting purposes and not an all-inclusive listing of all the requirements for a particular program. For a complete listing of all the program compliance requirements, please see the program-specific provisions and assurances. Additional guidance concerning program requirements can also be found in the Title I Part A Program Guide. Please note that the instructions that follow do not include an overview of all the program compliance self-check items that are included in the report. The instructions that follow simply go over the various reporting options. For a complete listing of all the program compliance self-check items, please reference the Program Compliance Self-Check Guide. Part 5 includes 16 program compliance self-check items in the following categories: LEA Program Plan, Parent and Family Engagement, Campus School-Wide Program Plan, Supplement Not Supplant, and Targeted Assistance Program Eligibility. Each program compliance self-check item includes the statutory language for the requirement and the statutory citation where the requirement can be found in the Every Student Succeeds Act federal law. The following section for each item includes where the LEA will self-report their compliance for the item. For most of the items, the LEA will have two choices: A, in compliance, or B, not in compliance. When the LEA selects in compliance, a pop-up window will display confirming that the LEA is reporting in compliance and assures that it has documentation showing compliance readily available upon request. Once OK is clicked, the response will be recorded. When an LEA selects not in compliance, a pop-up window will display confirming that the LEA is reporting not in compliance and will describe how the LEA plans to meet compliance the following year. Once OK is clicked, the response will be recorded. You will need to use the space provided to describe how the LEA plans to meet compliance the following year. Now, if you decide to change your response from not in compliance to in compliance after you have already selected not in compliance and have added information in the space provided for not in compliance, a pop-up window will display confirming that changing your response will delete the data entered in the text area for not in compliance. You can click OK to continue and the response will be changed to in compliance. Or you can click on Cancel and your response will not be changed. There are several items in Part 5, categories C and E, that include not applicable as a response, since those items are specific to school-wide program campuses and targeted assistance program campuses. If an LEA does not operate any one of the two programs, then not applicable would be an acceptable response. In this example, not applicable is listed as choice C. In this example, since the requirement is only applicable to campuses operating a school-wide program, if an LEA has campuses operating targeted assistance programs, not applicable would be an acceptable choice based on the reason provided under not applicable. When an LEA selects not applicable, a pop-up window will display confirming that the LEA assures that the following reason applies and that no other reason is acceptable. Once OK is clicked, the response will be recorded. Please note that under Category B, Parent and Family Engagement, there are several items related to campus requirements. Compliance is to be reported collectively for all Title I Part A campuses within an LEA. Thus, when an LEA is reporting in compliance, they are assuring that all campuses within the LEA are in compliance. If there is at least one campus that is not in compliance within an LEA, then the LEA should report not in compliance. Under Category C, Campus School-Wide Program Plan, all the items are related to campus requirements. Compliance is to be reported collectively for all Title I Part A school-wide program campuses within an LEA. Thus, when an LEA is reporting in compliance, they are assuring that all school-wide program campuses within the LEA are in compliance. If there is at least one campus that is not in compliance within an LEA, then the LEA should report not in compliance. The item referenced here is under Category B, parent and family engagement. It is referencing the requirement related to the campus written parent and family engagement policy. This requirement applies to all Title I Part A campuses within an LEA. By selecting in compliance, the LEA is assuring that all Title I Part A served campuses have the strongest documentation recommended to establish compliance that is readily available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. Now let's take a look at the final part of the PR1000, Part 6, Additional Information. Part 6 is optional. In Part 6, the LEA can type any additional information that is applicable to the PR1000 compliance report that they would like to share with TEA and/or document on the report. Although data can be saved periodically as you enter data throughout the report by clicking on the Save button, be sure to click the Save button at the end of your data entry and before moving to another schedule of the compliance reports. We will now take a look at Part 5, the Program Compliance Self-Check items that have been included in the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Report PR1000 for Title I Part A. There are a total of 16 compliance items that the LEA will self-report compliance on. They are in the following categories. A, the LEA program plan, there are 3 items. For parent and family engagement, there are 7 items. For the campus school-wide program plan, there are 4 items. For supplement not supplant, there is 1 item. And for the targeted assistance program eligibility, there is 1 item. The program compliance self-check items come from various sections in the Title I Part A statute. There are items from Section 1112, Local Educational Agency Plans. There are items from Section 1114, School-Wide Programs, Section 1115, Targeted Assistance Schools, Section 1116, Parent and Family Engagement, and Section 1118, Fiscal Requirements. The self-check items noted in Part 5A for the LEA program plan come from Section 1112 of the Title I Part A statute. For the LEA program plan, LEAs will report compliance on timely and meaningful stakeholder consultation, the statutory required descriptions, and plan review and revision. Compliance Item 1 under the LEA program plan is timely and meaningful stakeholder consultation. This requirement is found in ESSA Section 1112A1A. The statutory language mentions that the LEA Title I Part A program plan has been developed with timely and meaningful consultation with teachers, principals, other school leaders, paraprofessionals, specialized instructional support personnel, charter school leaders in an LEA that has charter schools, administrators, including administrators of programs in other parts of Title I, such as Title I Part C and Title I Part D, other appropriate school personnel, and with parents of children in schools served under Title I Part A. The LEA response choices for this item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended for LEAs to have in their possession includes the copy of the LEA's Title I Part A program plan and meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes, and documentation of attendance, documenting timely and meaningful stakeholder consultation in the development of the LEA Title I Part A program plan, and any other consultation documentation used to consult with the required stakeholder groups if applicable. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The second compliance item under the LEA program plan are the required descriptions noted in ESSA Section 1112B 1 through 13. The LEA Title I Part A program plan must include the statutory required descriptions that are noted in Section 1112B. For this compliance item, the LEA response choices are either in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended is the copy of the Title I LEA program plan that includes the statutory required descriptions. Please note that the LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with this program requirement. The third compliance item related to the LEA program plan is related to plan review and revision that can be found in ESSA Section 1112A5. The statutory language mentions that the LEA shall periodically review and, as necessary, revise the Title I Part A program plan. The response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended includes the copy of the LEA's Title I Part A program plan and meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes, and documentation of attendance documenting annual review of the LEA Title I Part A program plan. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with this particular program requirement. Part 5B, Parent and Family Engagement, includes compliance items that can be found in Sections 1112 and 1116 of the Title I Part A statute. Part 5B includes 7 different compliance items related to parent and family engagement. The LEA written PFE policy, the annual evaluation of the LEA written PFE policy, the campus written PFE policy development, distribution, and availability, annual Title I Part A meeting, the school parent compacts, LEA and campus personnel parent engagement training, and the parent's right to know as it relates to teacher qualifications. The first compliance item under Parent and Family Engagement is related to the LEA written Parent and Family Engagement Policy as cited in ESSA Section 1116A2. The statutory language mentions that the LEA has a written Parent and Family Engagement Policy that is incorporated into the LEA's plan developed under Section 1112 and establishes the LEA's expectations and objectives for meaningful parent and family involvement. The LEA response choices for this item include in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended is a copy of the LEA's written Parent and Family Engagement Policy that is incorporated into the LEA's Title I Part A program plan developed under Section 1112. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with this program requirement. The second compliance item under Parent and Family Engagement is the annual evaluation of the LEA written Parent and Family Engagement Policy. This requirement can be found in ESSA Section 1116A2D. The statutory language references that the LEA conducts with the meaningful involvement of parents and family members an annual evaluation of the content and effectiveness of the Parent and Family Engagement Policy in improving the academic quality of all Title I Part A schools served. The response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended includes meeting agendas, meeting invitations, meeting minutes or notes, and documentation of attendance, documenting participation of parents in the annual evaluation of the content and effectiveness of the parent and family engagement policy at the district level, and a copy of such annual evaluation. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with this program requirement. The third compliance item under parent and family engagement is the campus written parent and family engagement policy, its development, distribution, and availability. This requirement can be found in section 1116B1. The statutory language references that each school served under Title I Part A shall jointly develop with and distribute to parents and family members of participating children a written parent and family engagement policy agreed on by such parents. Parents shall be notified of the policy in an understandable and uniform format, and to the extent practicable, provided in a language that parents can understand. Such policy shall be made available to the local community and updated periodically to meet the changing needs of parents and the school. The LEA response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended would be that for each Title I Part A campus within an LEA, there is a copy of the written parent and family engagement policy that includes the method of policy distribution to parents and family members of participating students, evidence of availability to the local community, and the languages in which the policy is made available to parents. And meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes, documentation of attendance, documenting participation of parents in the development of the policy, and periodic updates to the policy to meet the changing needs of parents and the school. In addition to the documentation reference in the previous slide, the LEA shall also have any other consultation documentation used to consult with parents in the development of the policy if applicable, and evidence of policy distribution to parents and family members of participating students, and evidence of availability to the local community. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. Also, again, to reference and reiterate that this compliance item is related to every Title I Part A campus that is served within an LEA. In order for an LEA to mark that they are in compliance, they must have the strongest documentation recommended available for TEA and/or an auditor upon request when reporting in compliance for all campuses. The fourth compliance item under parent and family engagement is the annual Title I Part A meeting that can be found in ESSA Section 1116 DC1. Statutory language references that each Title I Part A campus is required to convene an annual meeting at a convenient time to which all parents of participating children shall be invited and encouraged to attend, to inform parents of their school participation under Title I Part A, and to explain the requirements of this part and the right of the parents to be involved. Please note that TEA requires that the annual meeting be offered on more than one day and at more than one time, so that parents have more than one option to attend. The LEA responses for this compliance item includes in compliance or not in compliance. An LEA should ensure that they have the strongest documentation recommended for each Title I Part A campus within their LEA to be able to report in compliance. The documentation recommended includes meeting invitations, agendas, and meeting minutes or notes that document what was shared at the meeting, and documentation of attendance documenting attendance of parents. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The fifth compliance item under parent and family engagement are the school parent compacts. This requirement can be found in ESSA Section 1116D. The statutory language references that the LEA has school parent compacts at each Title I Part A campus that outline how parents, the entire school staff, and students will share the responsibility for improved student academic achievement and the means by which the school and parents will build and develop a partnership to help children achieve the state's high standards. The LEA response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended that an LEA should retain locally is for each Title I Part A campus. So in order for an LEA to report in compliance for each Title I Part A campus, they shall have a copy of the school parent compact and meeting minutes, meeting agendas, and documentation of attendance documenting participation of parents in the development of the compacts, and any other consultation documentation used to consult with parents in the development of the compact if applicable. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The sixth compliance item under parent and family engagement is the LEA and campus personnel parent engagement training that can be found in ESSA Section 1116E3. The statutory language references that the LEA and Title I Part A campuses shall educate teachers, specialized instructional support personnel, principals, and other school leaders and other staff with the assistance of parents in the value and utility of contributions of parents and in how to reach out to, communicate with, and work with parents as equal partners, implement and coordinate parent programs, and build ties between parents and the school. The LEA response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended would be for each Title I Part A campus to have training and meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes that document the content of the training, and documentation of attendance that show evidence of attendance for teachers, specialized instruction support personnel, principals, other school leaders, and other staff, and evidence that the meeting or training was provided with the assistance of parents. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The seventh and final compliance item under parent and family engagement is a parent's right to know as it relates to teacher qualifications. This requirement can be found in Section 1112E1A. The statutory language references that at the beginning of each school year, a local educational agency shall notify the parents of each student that the parents may request, and the agency will provide to the parents on request and in a timely manner information regarding the professional qualifications of a student's classroom teacher and or teachers. The LEA response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended is official auditable correspondence, a newsletter, a website, or student handbook used to distribute information on the right to request the professional qualifications of the student's classroom teachers. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. Part 5C, Campus School-Wide Program Plan, references compliance items that can be found in Section 1114 of the Title I Part A statute that's related to school-wide programs. There are 4 compliance items related to the campus school-wide program plan: comprehensive needs assessment, coordination and integration, stakeholder involvement, and availability of the plan. The first compliance item under the campus school-wide program plan is related to the comprehensive needs assessment process. This requirement can be found in Section 1114B6. The statutory language references that the Title I Part A school-wide program is based on a comprehensive needs assessment of the entire school that takes into account information on the academic achievement of children in relation to the challenging state academic standards, particularly the needs of those children who are failing or at risk of failing to meet the challenging state academic standards and any other factors as determined by the local educational agency. For this compliance item, the LEA response choices are in compliance, not in compliance, or not applicable. An LEA would report not applicable if they do not have any campuses that are operating a school-wide program within their LEA. If the LEA has at least one school-wide program campus, then they would be required to respond with in compliance or not in compliance for this particular requirement. The strongest documentation recommended would be maintained locally for each Title I school-wide program campus. In order for an LEA to report in compliance, they are reporting that for each Title I Part A school-wide program campus within an LEA, that the campus has a description of the campus's comprehensive needs assessment that includes the dates the CNA was developed or the dates that the CNA was reviewed and revised for the current school year, the list of stakeholders involved that includes the individuals by name and their roles, areas examined, and a listing of the multiple data sources analyzed. Additionally, they should have meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes, and documentation of attendance, documenting alignment with the campus's CNA process description. In addition to the strongest documentation recommended on the previous slide, to demonstrate compliance for this requirement, the campus should also have their campus school-wide program plan that includes a summary of the CNA results and evidence of the use of those results to determine program activities. And in addition to the documentation referenced on the last 2 slides, for each Title I Part A school-wide program campus, there should also be evidence that program evaluations of the school-wide program plan from prior years are part of the CNA process to determine effectiveness and to inform decisions concerning program implementation. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The second compliance item under campus school-wide program plan is related to coordination and integration. This requirement can be found in ESSA Section 1114B5. The statutory language references that the Title I Part A school-wide program plan is developed in coordination and integration with other federal, state, and local services, resources, and programs, such as programs supported under this Act, violence prevention programs, nutrition programs, housing programs, Head Start programs, adult education programs, career and technical education programs, and schools implementing comprehensive support and improvement activities or targeted support and improvement activities under Section 1111D. The LEA response choices for this compliance item are in compliance, not in compliance, or not applicable. If an LEA does not serve any campuses in their Title I program with a school-wide program, then not applicable would be the acceptable response. However, if an LEA has at least one campus that operates a school-wide program, the response should be in compliance or not in compliance. For the strongest documentation recommended, the LEA for each Title I Part A school-wide program campus shall have the campus school-wide program plan showing evidence of coordination and integration documented with applicable program descriptions and outlining use of funds. And meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes, and documentation of attendance from the campus planning process showing evidence of such coordination and integration. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The third compliance item under Campus School-Wide Program Plan is stakeholder involvement. This requirement can be found in Section 1114B2. The statutory language references that an eligible school operating a school-wide program shall develop a comprehensive plan that is developed with the involvement of parents and other members of the community to be served and individuals who will carry out such plan, including teachers, principals, other school leaders, paraprofessionals present in the school, administrators, including administrators of programs described in other parts of this title, such as Title I Part C and Title I Part D, the local educational agency, to the extent feasible, tribes and tribal organizations present in the community, and if appropriate, specialized instructional support personnel, technical assistance providers, school staff, if the plan relates to a secondary school, students, and other individuals determined by the school. Similar to the other two compliance items, the LEA response choices for this item are in compliance, not in compliance, or not applicable. Not applicable would be an acceptable response for an LEA that does not have any campuses that operate school-wide programs within the LEA. The strongest documentation recommended for each Title I Part A school-wide program campus includes the campus school-wide program plan showing a listing of the stakeholders involved in the development of the school-wide program plan that includes the individuals by name and their roles, and meeting agendas, meeting minutes or notes, and documentation of attendance from the campus planning process that shows evidence of required stakeholder involvement in the development of the school-wide program plan. In addition to the strongest documentation recommended that was referenced in the previous slide, for each Title I Part A school-wide program campus, the campus shall have any other documentation used to involve the required stakeholder groups, if applicable. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. The fourth and final compliance requirement under the campus school-wide program plan is availability of such plan. This requirement can be found in section 1114B4. The statutory language references that the Title I Part A school-wide program plan is to be made available to the LEA, parents, and the public, and the information contained in such plan shall be in an understandable and uniform format, and to the extent practicable, provided in a language that parents can understand. Similar to the other three campus school-wide program plan compliance items, the response choices for this item are in compliance, not in compliance, and not applicable. It would be acceptable to respond with not applicable if an LEA does not have any campuses that are operating a school-wide program. Otherwise, if the LEA has at least one campus operating a school-wide program, they are to respond with in compliance or not in compliance for this requirement. The strongest documentation recommended is that each Title I Part A school-wide program campus shall have evidence of plan availability to the LEA, parents, and the public which may include posted on the campus and/or LEA website, hard copy available at the campus front desk, public library, or other public place, or hard copy made available at the request of the LEA, a parent, or the public. Additionally, they shall have evidence of plan availability in multiple languages, if applicable. The LEA may have other documentation that potentially might show compliance. In the event of an audit, TEA or audit staff would make the final determination concerning whether the documentation is sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the program requirement. Part 5D, Supplement Not Supplant, will reference a requirement noted in Section 1118 of the Title I Part A statute. There is one compliance item related to supplement not supplant, and that is the methodology or statement of exemption. The methodology or statement of exemption can be found in ESSA Section 1118B. The statutory language references that the LEA has either a formal supplement not supplant methodology for distributing state and local funds in order to ensure that each Title I campus receives all of the state and local funds that it would receive in the absence of Title I funds, or it has a formal statement of exemption. The LEA response choices for this compliance item are in compliance or not in compliance. The strongest documentation recommended is a copy of the SNS methodology and summary pages from the general ledger showing the total budget amount allocated to each campus, or a copy of the statement of exemption. Part 5E, Targeted Assistance Program Eligibility, references a requirement in Section 1115 of the Title I Part A statute. The compliance item is a Targeted Assistance Program Eligibility Student Identification Criteria. The Targeted Assistance Program Eligibility Student Identification Criteria requirement can be found in Section 1115 C1A. The statutory language references that for a Title I Part A Targeted Assistance Program, the LEA identifies children not older than age 21 who are entitled to a free public education through grade 12, and children who are not yet at a grade level at which the local educational agency provides a free education. The compliance responses for this particular item are in compliance, not in compliance, or not applicable. Not applicable would be an acceptable response for LEAs that do not have a campus that operates a targeted assistance program. The strongest documentation recommended for each Title I Part A targeted assistance program campus includes the description of the LEA selection criteria and the description of how the campus has supplemented the LEA's criteria, if applicable. The criteria must be multiple educationally related objective criteria, except that children in preschool through grade 2 shall be selected solely on the basis of criteria, including objective criteria established by the LEA, which may include teacher judgment, interviews with parents, or other developmentally appropriate measures. This concludes a portion of the presentation that goes over the program compliance self-check items that have been selected for inclusion in the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Report PR1000 for the Title I Part A program. There are several resources that you might find helpful in completing the PR1000 Title I Part A Compliance Report. You can access the Compliance Report Web Resources webpage that includes a mock-up of the PR1000, the Program Compliance Self-Check Guide, instructions document, and instructions videos. An additional resource is a Title I Part A program guide that has information related to all the Title I Part A compliance requirements. You can also reach out to your Regional Education Service Center Title I Part A program staff. They are able to provide technical assistance and support on a number of topics noted on this slide. In particular, they are able to provide technical assistance and support on the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Reports. They can also assist you with your plan for meeting compliance in the following year if you reported not in compliance for any of the program compliance self-check items. This concludes the presentation related to the Title I Part A PR1000 Compliance Report that is part of the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Reports. Please reach out to us in the Federal Program Compliance Division if you have any questions or if you need additional information.